30 seconds use. One minute use.
Just give me when it's 1:30 and I'll start that.
Minute 30.
All right. In the movie Avengers, we see. Shoot. In the movie Avengers, we see that Hulk ultimately reveals why he's able to control his green side, and he able to show us that he is always angry. And with that being said, him being always angry is what ultimately leads him to always keeping himself in control. Now this reminds us of the quotation today that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, by Burt Lance. Relating back to Hulk is that his mentality of always being angry is working, so there's no need for him to fix it. However, we can interpret this to mean that you need to fix what needs to be fixed, fix what's not working. However, we can disagree with this quotation. We will be proving this through two main points of analysis. Now, with that being said, let's get started. Our first main point is how war asks our army to be adjusted. Now, we'll be looking at this in the idea that with war, our armies must be adjusted in order to accommodate for that war, and therefore, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is broken. However, it still needs to be fixed. Now, in order to look at this, we'll be looking at this through the overwhelming theory, and secondly, Ender's Game. In the overwhelming theory simply states that that you can outweigh your opponents by just simply overwhelming them. Now, this was used in the Chinese army back in the day, where they created clay army soldiers because they knew that they weren't going to be able to beat the army that was coming ahead. So therefore, although they had an army, and although they could have contested the army that was coming, they decided, well, why fight them? Let's just create clay soldiers, and therefore, with creating these clay soldiers, they will be able to scare away the army, the army that was going to invade them, and then not have to fight them in the first place. So with this idea, they created this overall lasting effect that with that they were able to avoid fighting, and therefore this idea was not in need to be fixed. And we will see this more directly through Ender's Game. Ender's Game is a movie where humans were invaded by aliens, and these aliens had this control and this fleet where they were all being controlled by one thing, that this one queen bee, and so to speak. Now, this one queen bee had control of every single alien that was attacking Earth. Now we see that with one control with a queen bee attacking Earth, the aliens were able to kill so much of humanity on Earth. Now, ultimately, we see that one of the humans was able to shoot himself into the ship by luck, hitting the queen bee, ultimately devastating all of the army. However, when the humans after that build their own army and try to attack the aliens, they suffer great casualties because the aliens are still using that same mentality of protecting their queen bee. And therefore, by protecting their queen bee, they're depriving the humans of actually attacking them. Therefore, we see that although the system may have been broken slightly, by the human being getting lucky and shooting himself into the queen bee, we see that the system did not have to be fixed, and therefore because it wasn't broken, it did not have to be fixed. With that being said, let's move on to our second point, and this is going to be simply on communication and how communication allows us to change ourselves, even though we do not call for a change entirely. Now we'll be looking at the communication accommodation theory, and secondly, grease lightning. In communication accommodation theory, it basically states that that we adjust ourselves in the relations that we are. In other words, we change the way we speak depending upon what friends we are. Now we see this in particular in How I Met Your Mother, when Lily adjusts herself when her old college roommate comes to visit her, and she adjusts her way of speaking. Now we see that this relates directly to the quotation, and how it's proved that when Lily actually adjusts herself is that when she becomes more relative to her friend. Now we can see this more directly with Grease Lightning and how ultimately the main protagonist Sandy had to change herself for her future boyfriend and create this new identity. However, she did not realize that her future boyfriend was also creating a new identity for her. So that ultimately, in the end, they were creating this different identity for the different people that they were trying to impress. So we see that if they had just stuck to the same idea, that therefore they did not have to fix something that wasn't already broken. That leads back to our interpretation that states that fix what needs to be fixed because it is broken, which we disagreed with. That you do not have to wait for something to be broken in order for it to be fixed. So today, in relations to the quotation, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, by Burt Lance, which we interpret to mean that fix what needs to be fixed after it's broken. Which we could disagree with this quotation, and we proved it to two main points of analysis. One, how war relates to the idea that our armies need to be adjusted. Secondly, how communication allows us to change ourselves, and through the accommodation theory. So going back to the Hulk mentality, had he not found himself into this idea that where he's always angry is able to help him control himself, we would see that he would have never been able to control the Green Beast, and this would have led him to overall harming the people that he cared for most, and therefore, if he had not been able to find this, he would have harmed more people, and therefore not being able to control the Hulk. This thing went black on me.